Okay, let me tell you a story about a ghost in the machine. Specifically, the machine you're using to watch this right now. It's the story of a man who basically designed our modern world more than 100 years before it was ever built, only to die being called a failure. This is the incredible and kind of tragic story of Charles Babbage.
Now, I know what you're thinking. The 1830s? No way. Computers are a 20th century thing, right? We all know about Alan Turing and the pioneers of the 1940s. But what if I told you that the whole blueprint for computing was actually laid out way, way earlier, right in the middle of Victorian London?
And here's the real kicker. It wasn't supposed to run on silicon chips or electricity. The very first computer was designed to be this enormous, clanking machine of brass and iron, powered by steam. It was an industrial age dream of a digital future. I mean, how is that even possible? Well, it all started with a really big and very dangerous problem. To really get Babbage, you have to picture his world. We're talking 19th century London. It's the heart of a massive global empire. And that entire empire, well, it runs on numbers.
See, everything from sailing ships across the ocean to building bridges to managing the entire economy relied on these huge books filled with mathematical tables. And guess who made them? People. Literally, rooms full of human computers doing calculations by hand all day long. And you know, people get tired, they get bored, they make mistakes. And back then, a single typo wasn't just a minor issue, it could be absolutely catastrophic.
Now, Babbage was a man who was obsessed with order and precision. He hated errors. The story goes that one night he was checking a set of tables with a friend, and they were just riddled with mistakes. And in a moment of total frustration, he blurts this out. But for him, it wasn't just a complaint. It was a lightning bolt of an idea. He saw a solution, a machine that could do the math perfectly, flawlessly, every single time. And that idea would go on to consume his entire life. So, Babbage got to work. He set out to build his mechanical answer to the problem of human error. He gave it a name, the difference engine.
So what was this thing? Well, it wasn't a computer as we think of it. Not yet. It was more like a super specialized, massive calculator. We're talking thousands of gears and wheels all interlocking perfectly. Each turn of a gear was a mathematical step. He was literally trying to build logic directly into the metal itself.
The sheer scale of what he was trying to do was mind-boggling. His plans were for a machine more complex than anything ever built. And for a while, people were on board. The British government even gave him a bunch of funding because, hey, who wouldn't want perfectly accurate tables for their navy? It looked like his vision was actually going to happen. But then, right in the middle of building it, Babbage had an even bigger, crazier idea. And this is the moment where the story goes from just incredible to, well, too revolutionary. This is where Babbage takes a leap in his mind that was so far ahead of his time, nobody else on the planet could follow. He started to dream of something much, much more than a calculator. Okay, this slide right here is the whole ball game. The difference engine, as brilliant as it was a one-trick pony. It was built to do one job perfectly. But the analytical engine, that was something else entirely. It was a general-purpose machine. You could give it instructions, a program, for any kind of problem, and it would solve it. That's the leap. That's the fundamental idea that separates a simple calculator from a true computer. And you can literally see that leap in imagination here. On the left, you've got the difference engine's design. It's complex, sure, but it's orderly, it's structured. Then on the right, the analytical engine. It's a sprawling, almost chaotic-looking system. It's a machine designed not just to calculate, but to be reconfigured, to think in programmable steps. And get this, look at the components he designed. A store to hold numbers and results. That's what we call memory, or RAM. A mill to do the heavy lifting of the calculations. That's his version of a central processing unit, the CPU. It even had conditional logic, the ability to make if-then decisions. And how would you program it? With punched cards, an idea he borrowed from looms that wove complex patterns into fabric. He had it all, the complete architecture of a modern computer, designed on paper in the 1830s. So he had invented the future. The only problem was he was completely alone in it. And this is where the story gets pretty tragic, because Babbage's revolutionary idea was about to slam into the brick wall of 19th century reality. Well, he was almost alone. There was one person, a truly brilliant mathematician and the daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron, who actually got it. She understood the true, earth-shattering importance of the analytical engine. Her name was Ada Lovelace. Lovelace's insight here is just staggering. Babbage was mostly focused on crunching numbers, but she realized that if the machine could manipulate numbers, and numbers are just symbols, then it could manipulate any symbol. She saw that one day a machine like this could go beyond math. It could compose music, create art, do basically anything you could represent with symbols. She saw the universal, creative potential of computing 100 years before anyone else. And she didn't just dream about it. She actually translated an article about the engine and added her own incredibly detailed notes. And in one of those notes, she wrote out a step-by-step sequence of instructions for the machine to perform a complex calculation. It was an algorithm. Today, we recognize it as the world's very first computer program. But even with an intellectual partner like Lovelace, the real world came crashing in. Trying to build these machines with Victorian tools was just incredibly hard and fantastically expensive. The government, which had been paying for the first engine, started losing patience. To them, it looked like Babbage had just abandoned one crazy expensive project for an even crazier one. Eventually, they just pulled the plug. The funding dried up, and Babbage was left with his piles of drawings and a reputation as an eccentric failure. So when he died in 1871, that's how he was remembered. A brilliant guy, for sure, but a failure whose grand machines never actually got built. His notebooks were filed away, the parts were sent to museums. The computer revolution was over before it even started. But here's the thing about truly great ideas. They don't stay buried forever. It took almost a century, but Babbage's vision would eventually be rediscovered, and his name would finally be cleared. I mean, just look at this timeline. It really shows you the staggering gap. 1837, he designs the computer. Then, nothing. 100 years later, in the 1940s, the pioneers of the electronic age essentially have to reinvent the core principles of computing from scratch, totally unaware of his work. And then finally, in 1991, the Science Museum in London decides to try something wild, build his difference engine using only his original 19th century plans. And after years of meticulous construction, they turned the crank on this massive 5-ton machine made of over 8,000 parts. And it worked. It worked perfectly, calculating numbers to 31 decimal places without a single error. Babbage hadn't been a failure. His designs were flawless. He wasn't wrong. He was just early, a century too early. And that's the thing you have to take away from this. That phone in your hand, the laptop you're working on, the AI systems that are changing our world, they all run on the same fundamental architecture he sketched out by candlelight. The store, the mill, the idea of a programmable machine, that's all Babbage. He didn't just invent a machine, he invented the logic of our entire digital age. And that leaves us with this one kind of haunting question. Babbage's story is proof that a world-changing idea can be sitting right there in front of us, and we can just dismiss it as being too weird, too expensive, or just too crazy to work. It really makes you wonder, what revolutionary idea might we be ignoring right now?